Battle Dress by Amy Efaw, Chapter 13. Saturday, 7th August, 12:50. Don't tell me, Gabrielle said. That's lunch. I pulled my eyes away from Scott's fixed opinion in my bugle notes and followed Gabrielle's gaze. Cadet Daly was at the rear of one of the deuce and a halfs, parked near the entrance of the site, pulling brown plastic bags out of a box. Yep, Ping said. Good old MREs. The perfect midday snack. Good old MREs. Gabrielle made a face and, with one practiced jab of her index finger, stopped her teds from sliding down her nose. Meals ready to eat. 3 lies in 1. Most of Third Squad laughed. Gabrielle smiled, obviously proud of her joke. And I thought there was an honor code around here. Hey, Kit said. Food is food, Gab. They actually let us eat out here at Lake Frederick, so whatever they throw my way, I'm eating. I'll take quantity over quality every time. Ciro yawned, looking at Gabrielle out of one half-opened eye. All I've got to say, Brian, is out here, there's no more inch-size bites, order arms, or sitting at attention. No room inspections and no drill, and that's good enough for me. He scooted back a few feet and leaned against a tree trunk. All we've got to do all day is run around in the woods, then chill out at night, play cards, go swimming, hang out, rack. He tipped his Kevlar over his eyes. I'll tell you what, life at Lake Frederick is good. Yeah, life is good now, Jason said, but in a few days we'll be back to the old same old, same old. Cadet Daly arrived, tossing each of us an MRE. Okay, Third Squad, Chow's here, and no sniveling about what you get, he said. I ain't your maitre d'. My MRE landed in my lap. I shoved my bugle notes into my back pocket and flipped the package over to read what was to be my lunch. Stamped onto the industrial-strength plastic was meal number 8, ham slice. Ham slice? Well, it can't be any worse than the stuff my mother pops out of a can and serves at Christmas. Cadet Daly looked at his watch. You boneheads have about 20 minutes to scarf down those MREs before the first obstacle of the leader reaction course. He pointed down the dirt road in the middle of the woods. Off to the right, high walls of corrugated aluminum loomed, sandwiching each obstacle and hiding it from our view. We'll get to see how you guys work as a team. And there are 8 obstacles, just enough for each of you to get a turn being the leader. Each of us will be the leader? I ran my finger along the edge of my MRE. I'll be evaluating each leader's reaction, hence the name, Leader Reaction Course. As he, Cadet Daly paused, glancing at Gabrielle and me, or she, assesses the situation, comes up with a plan to clear the obstacle, and motivates the squad to execute the plan. This is going to be a good time, Third Squad, so eat up. I'll be back in a few. Come up with a plan that everyone has to follow? I looked at the Third Squad members around me. What if I can't figure out what to do? Or they think my plan is stupid? I knew one thing about myself. I'd much rather be part of a group taking orders, not giving them. And I'd always been that way. My mother used to sneer at me and say, "You're such a follower. You never think on your own. You'd walk right off a 10-story building if someone told you to." I hated hearing it, but even worse was admitting that she was right. I bit on the inside of my lip as I tore a hole through the plastic package and reached inside for the lumpy vacuum-packed packets. Ham slice with natural juices, potatoes au gratin, accessory packet, crackers, cheese spread, brownie, chocolate covered. Anybody want to trade? Banana held up his MRE. Chicken with rice. I had it yesterday. It was pretty good if you used the Tabasco sauce. And if you like coagulated chicken grease, Gabrielle said. No thanks. But here, take mine. Spaghetti with meat and sauce. She tossed Banana her unopened MRE. Spaghetti? Really? Banana snatched the MRE out of the air. You're the best, Brian. I know, but I have my motives. I'd rather not eat than waste 3,500 calories on manufactured vomit. Hickman snorted. Blue Blood Brian doesn't like MREs? What a surprise. He spat on the ground. Since they're designed to sustain soldiers in combat. Gabrielle took a swig of water from her canteen. And your point exactly, Hick? She paused to emphasize the first syllable. Men. But Hickman didn't get a chance to expound. Cadet Daly was back. Sorry to cut it short, Third Squad, but your feast is over. We grabbed our gear and followed Cadet Daly down the dirt road to the first obstacle. Behind the first aluminum wall, a huge upperclassman in a yellow t-shirt and BDU pants greeted us. Welcome to the LRC, he said. I'm Cadet Sabo, and I will be the safety observer for this obstacle. He extended his sun-browned, muscled arm toward a wooden wall about 12 feet high and 8 feet wide that was slanted away from us and was set in the middle of a sawdust pit. Except for the red areas running down its outside edges and along its bottom third, the wall was painted gray. A rope attached to the top of the wall dangled halfway down. Gabrielle pulled my sleeve. That's the guy from bayonet training, she whispered. He's hotter up close than from far away. Cadet Sabo. He's no Monet. I frowned at her. What is she talking about? And why is she talking? You know, Andy, some guys are Monets. They look better from a distance. Do you ladies have something you'd like to share? The upperclassman Cadet Sabo glowered at us. Expertise on the LRC, perhaps? The rest of Third Squad turned to look at us. Maybe you'd like to take this block of instruction. No, sir. I glanced at Cadet Daly leaning against the corrugated aluminum. The most prominent part of his body was his red face, turning redder. Cadet Sabo nodded. Then I suggest you keep your mind on the task at hand. As I was. I glared at Gabrielle. Thanks a lot. The last thing I wanted right now was to bring attention to myself. That was about the quickest way to become the leader first. Annoy the guy in charge. This is the scenario. You've been taking heavy fire from enemy snipers in your area of operations and have requested close air support. Your mission is to get your squad and supplies safely across the river, represented by this sawdust pit here. Cadet Sabo waved his hand toward the pit filled with the coarse sawdust behind him. In an estimated 13 minutes, those airstrikes are gonna come fast and furious, pummeling this riverbank. That gives you a maximum of 13 minutes to be safely on the other side of the river. Now this river has an immediate 35-foot drop-off from its banks. In addition, the enemy has laid a narrow minefield along the edge of the water. Cadet Sabo pointed to the red painted piping that encircled the pit. As you can see here, making a big deal of stepping over the red piping, he walked through the sawdust until he reached the gray slanted wall and leaned against it. You must use this partially constructed bridge to cross the river. However, be advised, the bridge is also booby-trapped. He ran his hand down the outside edge of the wall. Anything painted red is mined. That means whatever touches red blows up. If a person touches it, he dies. If your equipment hits it, it's lost. And if anything, equipment or personnel, falls into the water, he said, stomping back to us through the sawdust, it sinks. Plain and simple. Only I walk on water, people. Now direct your attention to the partition behind you. A wooden crate, rope, and plastic barrel were stacked against the corrugated aluminum. Those are your supplies. An ammo box, a 26-foot rope, and a fuel barrel. They must make it across the river with you. You may use any or all of this equipment to assist you in breaching the obstacle. But hint, something that looks helpful may be a distractor in disguise. Now direct your beady eyes back on me. He waited for us to turn around before he continued. Finally, one of you will be the leader for this obstacle. But remember, this is a team effort. Team members are encouraged to participate in the decision-making process. Any questions? Nobody moved. Like I said, Cadet Sabo continued, you'll have a maximum of 13 minutes to breach my obstacle. So far, Bravo Company's 2nd Squad, 1st Platoon holds the record. He folded his arms across his chest. 7 minutes and 26 seconds. I heard a few of my squad mates whistle under their breath. Cadet Sabo nodded. That's right, people. Bravo Company kicked some serious butt. Their time will be hard to top. But you've still got H Company's squad competition. Your times for all the obstacles are going to be averaged when you complete the LRC. And the squad with the best composite score will win the company's squad competition. Cadet Sabo looked at his watch. Incidentally, that squad from Bravo Company I told you about, they also won Bravo Company's squad competition. They smoked everyone. Yeah, I heard Hickman mumble behind me, and I bet they didn't have any females on their squad. I looked at him. He was staring at Cadet Sabo, the expression on his face blank, like he hadn't said anything at all. But standing beside Hickman was Bonanno. I caught his eye, and he quickly shifted focus to the ground. He thinks it too. Well, I was just gonna have to prove them wrong. Okay, Cadet Sabo said. If you've got no questions for me, stack arms over there. He pointed to the edge of the woods. Your squad leader and I will keep an eye on them. Move out. We unslung our M16s and scrambled for the trees. With the butts on the ground and the barrels in the air, we balanced our M16s one against the other until the clump of weapons stood on its own, looking like a miniature teepee. When we had returned to the edge of the sawdust pit, Cadet Sabo said, after Cadet Daly picks the leader, I'll start the clock. I kept my eyes on Cadet Daly's boots as he paced back and forth, eyeing each of us. The voice in my mind was in sync with his steps. Don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me. All right, he finally said. Combat, show him how it's done. Ping? I closed my eyes, relieved. Thank God. Yes, sir, Ping yelled. Remember, Cadet Sabo said, 13 minutes or less. He and Cadet Daly went to stand beside our weapons. Starting now. Ping started the timer on his watch and clapped his hands together. Okay, guys, let's do this. First thing, Miguel, I need you to do a quick recon. Climb up the wall and tell me what you see. And don't forget the mines. He pointed at the red piping bordering the pit. About 4 feet of sawdust lay between the piping and the base of the obstacle. Not a problem, Jason said, jogging over to the aluminum partition behind us. You're looking at an expert jumper here. Ping laughed. Whatever you want to believe about yourself, Miguel. Okay, Zero, grab a couple guys and drag the supplies, he waved toward the partition, over to the edge of the pit. Zero nodded at Kit and Bonanno, standing near him. Mind giving me a hand, guys? I watched the flurry of activity explode around me, amazed. I knew Ping would be good, but I didn't think he'd be that good. He didn't even have to stop and think. While I just stood there, trying to process all the information, Ping had already had a plan and was rattling off orders, and everybody followed them, just like that, no questions asked. Jason had his back to the partition now, sizing up the obstacle. After he took a few deep breaths, he sprinted toward it, clearing the sawdust gap with one huge leap. He He planted one foot in the center of the wall, grasped the rope, and pulled himself up hand over hand until he reached the top. Okay, he called down to us over his shoulder. Here's the deal. We've got another wall mirroring this one. The two walls kind of form an A, but with a gap between the walls that we've got to cross about, 4.5, maybe 5 feet or so. That's about as wide as I am tall, Gabrielle whispered to me, her eyes large. I nodded, a little sympathetically, I realized. But I couldn't reassure her right then. I didn't want to miss a single detail about the obstacle. Any mines up there with you? Ping asked. Nope. Then move across the gap and tell me what you see. Jason reached for the other wall, then disappeared from sight. Hey, Ping, Ciro yelled from the partition behind us. Check this out. In his arms he held the flat crate that Cadet Sabo had called an ammo box. This thing's heavy, like 40 pounds heavy. It's filled with rocks or something. So's this, Banana said, tipping the fuel barrel. I'd say it weighs 80 pounds, easy. Ping turned around, a frown of concentration on his face. Okay, Jason yelled from the other side. This well looks exactly like the one you're looking at. Minefield at the bottom and all, except there's no rope. Move it, third squad, Cadet Daly yelled from the sidelines. Time's a-tickin'. Ping wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, and nodding to Ciro, said, Look, just get that stuff moved, okay? We'll get this figured out. Jason grunted as he pulled himself back across the gap between the walls. And you gotta clear like 3 or 4 feet of sawdust, water, to get all the way over to the other side. And the edge of the pit is mined, he nodded at us, just like on that side. Ping let his breath out slowly. One more thing, Jason said, swinging his leg over the top of the wall to straddle it. I don't know if it's important or what, but there's this board lying on the ground over on the other side. A board? Ping squinted up at Jason. How long? Jason shrugged. About 10 feet, maybe? It looks like a plank. You know, the kind pirates walked. It's 12 feet long, people, Cadet Sabo yelled from where he stood beside our weapons. And the answer to your next question is yes. If you find a useful purpose for it, go for it. Ping nodded. Thank you, sir. Then he looked up at Jason. Good job, man. Just hang tight. He slowly turned back to us, removing his Kevlar to scratch the top of his head. As I watched him think, I wondered what he'd come up with. A bunch of facts about the obstacles milled around in my mind, but that was all. I had no idea where I'd start. But it didn't take Ping long. Okay, guys, he said. This is what's gonna happen. We're gonna pass this stuff up the wall. Ciro Bogus, you're our tallest man, so you're going to be doing most of the passing. One of you go up there with McGill, he said, replacing his helmet, and the others stay down here. He paused to snap his chin strap. I know the reach will be tough, but we've got to make it happen, guys. What are we gonna do with the stuff? Jason yelled from the top of the wall. You know, once it's up here. We're talking 0 storage space up here. Hickman shrugged. That's a no-brainer. Just toss the stuff off the top. No-brainer, huh? And I wasn't even able to come up with that. How would I function when my turn came around to be leader? Can't do that, people, Cadet Sabo yelled. You've got very sensitive items there. Hickman and Ciro looked at each other and swore. No need to get illiterate, guys, Kit said. We'll just put a couple of guys on the far side, too. Ping nodded. Then 2 on top, 2 on this side. We've got 3 guys tall enough to make the reach. You can count me out of that job, Gabrielle said and laughed. Everyone looked at her vaguely, then turned away. Gabrielle scooted closer to me and whispered, These guys are wired a little too tight. I shrugged. I thought of myself. Better than not being wired at all. Then that's it, Ping said. McGill and Banano, take the far side. I'm on my way, Jason yelled and started climbing back across the gap. Me too, Banano said. Then Ciro and Hickman, you take the top. That'll leave Bogus and me to lift the stuff from this side. We'll pass it up and then down like an assembly line. Okay, let's hit it. Gabrielle and I looked at each other. Everybody had a job but us. And I suppose Andy and I will just stand here, Gabrielle said, cheering you guys on. Kit smiled. I'm sure you're a very good cheerleader, Gab. Gabrielle crossed her arms and turned away from him. But you'll be helping Ping and me with the lifting, Kit continued. Socrates said, know thyself, and I know I'll need all the help I can get. When everyone was in position, Ping said, we'll start with the ammo box. It'll be our test run, kind of like a warm-up. Kit nodded. You're calling the shots, boss man. I just work here. He squinted up at Ciro. Okay, big guy, let's get those biceps burning. He lifted the ammo box over his head and leaned toward the wall. Keep an eye on my feet, guys. Don't let me get too close to the piping. I'd hate to finish the obstacle sitting on the sidelines. Ciro moved partway down the wall, rappel fashion. Then hanging on to the rope with one hand, he stretched the other toward the box. Not even close, Ping said. Come on, Bogus, you've got to angle it towards Ciro more. I couldn't just stand here watching. Is there something I can do? I asked. Ping shook his head, waving me away. Just wait one, Andy, okay? I stepped back, chagrined. I got the message. I was in the way. Ping looked up the wall. Hey, Ciro, face Bogus if you can. I think it'll give you a couple more inches. Ciro nodded, and holding the hand with the rope behind his back, he twisted around to face the box. Kit slowly tipped the box forward, his arms shaking. Give me some support here. Ping, somebody! This thing's slipping! I stepped forward, but Ping was already there. I'm all over it, Bogus. He stooped in front of Kit and, reaching upward, partially supported the weight of the box. Okay, forward now. A little more. More. Gabrielle and I hovered around them, wanting to help but not knowing how. I hated feeling useless like this. Several inches still remained between the box and Sierra's flexed fingers. "Doggone it," Kit yelled, letting the box slide to the ground. He paced back and forth, rubbing his right shoulder with his left hand. "Sorry, guys. We don't have the reach. Guess I'm not tall enough." "What if I get up on your shoulders?" Ping asked, and I handed it to Ciro. "I don't know." "Yeah," Kit shrugged. "That might do it." Ping looked at Gabrielle and me. "Then you guys can lift the ammo box up to me." I looked at the ammo box, then at Gabrielle. "Sure, we can handle that." "Yeah." Gabrielle tugged at a red curl that had escaped the confinement of her Kevlar. "Sure." Ping climbed on Kit's shoulders. I dragged the heavy ammo box over to Gabrielle, and even lifting it together, we struggled to boost it up to Ping. Ping and Kit grunted and gasped until finally Ciro yelled, "Got it!" And with one hand, Ciro passed it up to Hickman. "Good job, guys." Ping slid off Kit. "But I think you're gonna have serious problems getting that thing down the other side." Ciro nodded. "You ain't kidding. There's no rope on the other wall to help us out." We all watched Ping turn from the obstacle. I saw him studying the fuel barrel and rope that still needed to get over. Maybe that rope. Is he thinking about using that rope somehow? Like tying it to the top of the wall on the other side or something. Maybe I should say something about it? I could feel my adrenaline pumping. I could be useful. I finally had something to contribute. I took a deep breath in. "But we've got that board," I heard Ping saying to himself. He looked back up to the top of the wall. "I've got an idea. Listen. Have McGill and Bonanno take the board they've got over there and prop it against the wall and over the sawdust. Then you guys slide the ammo box down to them, but watch the mines." I'd been wrong. At least I hadn't opened my mouth. That was something to be grateful for. What was my problem? Why couldn't I think? Ciro gave Ping a thumbs up. "Sounds good to me." Then Hickman and Ciro disappeared with the ammo box across the gap between the walls, out of sight. Ping turned to us. "One down." He walked over to the barrel, then circled around it. "This is going to be the killer." He stepped over the coiled rope on the ground beside the barrel. "I don't know, one guy lifting this thing?" He shook his head. "I can't see it happening. Not with that reach. And we're going to run into the same height problem that we had with the ammo box." He glanced at Gabrielle and me before turning back to the barrel. "I bet he's thinking about Gab and me, that we'll never be able to lift that barrel up to him." And I knew that if that was what he was thinking, he'd be absolutely right. We had enough trouble with the ammo box. The thought made me feel even more useless. Ping bent over and picked up one end of the rope off the ground. "Anyone remember how long they said this rope is?" 26 feet. I answered without thinking. Hey, that helped. Was he thinking of using the rope now? "Okay, then this is what we're gonna do, guys. It'll be a stretch," he grinned, "but we're gonna risk it. We're gonna wrap the rope around the barrel, secure it with a sturdy knot, and then toss the free end up to Hickman and Ciro. Then we'll boost, lift, swing, whatever it takes to get the barrel high enough so those guys can pull it up and over the mines with the rope." He handed me the end of the rope. "Sound like a plan, guys?" Kit nodded. "Sounds like a plan." Well, at least I'd been on the right track. Sort of. They were using the rope for something, even if it wasn't what I had come up with. I felt slightly encouraged. I stared at the rope in my hand, then at Ping and Kit. They were pointing at the wall and discussing the barrel, their backs facing me. I looked at Gabrielle. "So, I guess we should get started on this." "Sure." Gabrielle glared at Ping and Kit. "Maybe we'll get a few cool points by taking the initiative." I watched Gabrielle as we looped the rope around the barrel. Her mouth was tight and her hands worked fast, with stiff, jerky movements. Something was bothering her. Does she feel as useless as I do? Ping came up beside us. "Slide the rope down a little, guys. Keep it center of mass. No need to have physics working against us," Gabrielle muttered after he stepped away. "We're not complete idiots." She twisted the rope into a half knot. "Isn't it interesting how people change when they're handed a little power?" She scowled over her shoulder in Ping's direction. "Absolute power corrupts absolutely." I snuck another quick look at Gabrielle, confused. She wasn't feeling like I was. She seemed angry at them. At Ping. Not at herself. "Gab, what's up?" She didn't answer. "You mean Ping?" I almost laughed. I'd never seen Gabrielle criticize Ping before. She practically worshipped him. "You're mad at Ping." "Not mad," she said, forming a second half knot. "Disgusted. Thoroughly and utterly disgusted." Disgusted? Why? I couldn't believe her 180-degree turn. It was almost schizophrenic. I sighed. "Because he double-checked us?" "Gab, he's the leader. Isn't that what he's supposed to do? You know, make sure everything's just right?" She stopped tugging the rope and stared at me. "Doesn't it bother you, Andy," she whispered, "that we're being excluded in this whole stupid thing, and it's just because we're girls? I mean, I'd think you of all people. Excluded? Gab." "All right." Jason's voice rose from the other side of the obstacle. "Beautiful, guys. We got it. The ammo box is now under our control." I looked at the wall and then smiled at Gabrielle. "Great, they did it. I mean, we did it." "You got it right the first time," Gabrielle said. Ciro appeared over the top of our wall. "First mission accomplished. What's next?" Hickman crawled beside him. "We're ready for that barrel, guys." After Ping explained the plan to Hickman and Ciro and inspected our knot, he held the end of the rope out to me. "Andy, you're good at throwing." Better than most of you guys, I heard Gabrielle mutter under her breath. I stared at the rope, my chest tightening. Was he going to ask me to do something? So how about you toss the end of the rope up to Ciro? Kit and I are going to be lifting this thing. Ping nodded at the barrel. That leaves both of us out. Your generosity astounds me, Gabrielle muttered again. I looked up at the wall, wiping my hands on my pants. Sure, this was it, my big chance. I couldn't blow it. It wasn't like running, just me against myself and the clock. The whole squad was depending on me. If I failed, we'd all fail. You've basically got one shot, Andy. You can't miss. If it falls into the sawdust or hits the mines, well, you know the deal. Gabrielle snorted. How quickly they forget. Only this morning, what did Andy do? Huh? Let me give you a little hint. Who was one of the 2 individuals in this squad to qualify expert on the hand grenade assault course? She shook her head. Who not only threw her grenades within the bursting radius, but got bullseyes on all 5 targets? You guys are pathetic. I looked at the dirt. Thanks a lot, Gab. Why was she trotting that out? All she was doing was building up everybody's expectations, setting me up for failure. I didn't need that kind of pressure. I created enough of my own. Come on, Gab, Kit said. Take her easy. We're all in this together, okay? Gab, Ping said. I don't know what your problem is, but I'm not the one with the problem. Gabrielle pushed up her teds and crossed her arms. No one was surprised when Hickman got expert this morning. Oh no, everybody expected that. He's a pitcher after all. But when Andy gets expert, well, it must have been luck or... Look, Ping said. Andy's performance this morning didn't go unnoticed, okay? That's why I asked her to do this. Oh really? She was all sarcasm. Well, you certainly didn't exude confidence in her ability. I clenched my teeth. Here I was again, just like at home. Somehow getting dragged into an argument I wanted no part of. Being held up as the poster child for somebody else's personal agenda. I was sick of it. Ping frowned. What? I never doubted her ability, Gab. Just stop it, I yelled. I can't believe you're arguing about this now. We've got a mission to do. I grabbed the end of the rope out of Ping's hand. Just tell me when you want me to throw this stupid thing. I could feel everyone, even Ciro and Hickman on the top of the wall, staring at me. I don't care. Let them stare. I was tired of always getting pushed around. I squeezed the end of the rope in my left fist. After that huge deal Gab made, you better not screw this up. I tossed the rope from one hand to the other, feeling its weight. This needs to be heavier or I'll never get it up there. I made a quick tight knot close to the end of the rope, watching Ping and Kit each take a side of the barrel. Okay, Andy, Ping grunted as he lifted the barrel with Kit. Now! I made sure I had enough slack, holding my breath, tossed the rope underhand up to the top of the wall. Bullseye! Ciro yelled, snapping his hand around the rope. Yes! I wanted to jump up and down, but I knew it wouldn't have been the thing to do right then. I had to act casual, like I hadn't expected anything but perfection out of myself. Now Hickman, Ciro was yelling. Pull! With violent jerks, Ciro and Hickman tugged the barrel upward as if they were hauling an anchor out of the sea. The barrel crashed against the wall, just missing the minefield, and banged and bumped its way up to the top. Okay, Ping, Ciro yelled down to us. The barrel's secure up here, but I sure hope you've got some ideas on how we're getting the thing off of here. 'Cause Hickman and I, we don't have a clue. No problem, just tell McGill and Banana over on the other side to take that board and reach it up to you guys. Then you guys place it over the gap and roll the barrel across it. Got it? Ciro nodded. Then what? I'm on my way up, Ping said, jogging toward the aluminum partition. I've got it all worked out. Ciro gave Ping a thumbs up and disappeared across the gap. I watched Ping sprint toward the obstacle, bound up the wall, and disappear across the gap. About a minute later, Hickman returned to our side of the obstacle. Looking at Kit, he said, Ping wants you, he glanced at Gabrielle and me. I mean, all of you, to get across to the other side, ASAP. He looked at Kit again. Ping wants you over first to help with the barrel, and I'm supposed to stay here to make sure that, well, he looked at Gabrielle and me. Just until everyone gets across safely. There's nothing like being lumped together with ammo boxes and fuel barrels, Gabrielle whispered to me, as Kit jogged back to the aluminum partition. I feel like just another bothersome piece of junk that has to be lugged across that obstacle. I glared at her. I was sick of her negative comments. But that particular comment really riled me. She was blaming her own incompetence on other people. Lugged across that obstacle? Who's going to be lugged across that obstacle? I felt shaky inside because I knew I was about to say something that would probably make Gabrielle mad at me, but I had to say it because she just wasn't getting it on her own. I knew that until Gabrielle started taking responsibility for herself, she'd never earn her place in the squad. And because she was my friend, I wanted to help her and stand by her and not let her lose the respect of the squad. What I'd figured out and wanted her to understand was this. Just because we were members of the squad, we weren't automatically a part of the team. A gaping difference existed between the two positions, like the difference between knowing that someone sat beside you in class because the teacher assigned seats, and knowing that someone chose the seat beside you because she was your friend. Or like the difference between people who can barely tolerate each other, calling themselves a family, and people who truly love each other being a family. More than anything, I wanted to be part of Third Squad from the inside. I'd spent 17 years standing on the outside, and I wanted Gabrielle to be there with me. Listen, Gab, if you let yourself be lugged across that obstacle, then you aren't any better than an ammo box, a wood box full of rocks, and, oh, what did you say? A bothersome piece of junk? I turned back to the wall, my eyes on Kit as he swung over the top. There, I'd said it. But Andy, Gabrielle said, they don't want to hear our ideas. They just want to do their own thing without asking what we think. Our ideas? What ideas? No one stopped you from throwing out suggestions, Gab. You can't get mad at them for not listening to you. I paused, softening my tone. If you had nothing to say. I kept staring up the wall, wondering how she'd respond, worrying that I'd come across like some know-it-all. Well, she finally said, they aren't letting us do anything. Don't pretend that. What do you want to do? Lift the 80-pound barrel? Or even better, hold some guy on your shoulders while he lifts the 80-pound barrel? I shook my head. If we have to do that kind of stuff, we're going to fail. She stared at the ground, winding a loose strand of her hair around her finger. I might not be able to lift that barrel, but I know what I can do. I can follow orders, even if that includes staying out of the way, without complaining. I can take care of myself without getting someone to pick up the slack. And, I said, pointing at the wall, I can get across that obstacle without being lugged. I can't believe it, Gabrielle said. You sound exactly like Cadet Daly. I couldn't tell if she was annoyed or impressed, but I wasn't going to worry about it. I'd finally said what I needed to say, and what I thought she needed to hear. And if she didn't like it, well, she'd just have to get over it. All right, Brian, Hickman called down to us from his perch on the wall. Kit's over. You're next. Okay, Gabrielle said, her eyes bouncing between Hickman, the slanted wall, and the minefield bordering the sawdust. Sure, I'll just shimmy right up that thing. She glanced at me and whispered, without being lugged. I smiled. She smiled back. That's right. Hickman pointed at the bottom of the wall. Just get a good running start and jump high enough so your feet hit the wall above the mines. Then all you gotta do is grab that rope and hang on. If you get that far, I'll pull you up the rest of the way. Suddenly, yelling erupted from the other side of the obstacle. Hickman looked over his shoulder, then down at us. The barrel's over. That means as soon as we're all across, the clock stops. Let's go. Gabrielle took a deep breath, then charged toward the obstacle, but she slid to a halt inches from the red piping. I closed my eyes. Oh, Gab. She laughed nervously. Just practicing, guys. She jogged back to the partition without looking at me. I noticed that she was limping a little. Oh, her knee. I had forgotten about her knee. I felt a tiny twinge of guilt then, about going off on her. She'd complained a lot about things today, but her knee wasn't one of them. Gabrielle licked her lips and tried again. This time she made it over the piping. The heel of her boot just barely cleared the wall's mined area. But there she was, hanging onto the rope, squealing. I did it! I jumped up and down, clapping my hands. Way to go, Gab. Now all the way to the top. Gabrielle inched her way up the rope, and Hickman pulled her over the top of the wall and steadied her. See the board? I heard him say. Crawl across it over the gap. Then he looked down at me. Whenever you're ready, Davis, I'm ready. You don't need to be ready for anything, Hickman. I swallowed and wiped my hands on my pants, studying the wall, then the sawdust pit, and finally the red piping. I closed my eyes and breathed slowly. Just get a good start and jump. Simple. When I opened my eyes, I was speeding toward the obstacle. I saw the red piping. I saw the sawdust sailing under my feet. I saw my right foot hit the slanted wall. I saw hand over hand walking up the rope. I saw Hickman's face. He was smiling. Not too shabby, Davis. Need a hand? No thanks. I threw my leg over the top of the wall and pulled myself up. Straddling the top, I paused a moment to catch my breath. Ping was on top of the other wall across the gap, leaning over the edge, his back toward me. Excited voices were coming from the other side of the obstacle. I crawled across the gap, over the precariously placed board, which shook as I moved. Gab must have loved this. I squeezed next to Ping and looked over, and there was Gabrielle, hanging halfway down, clinging to Ping's hand. Jason, Kit, Bonanno, and Ciro were yelling advice to her from the ground beyond the red piping. Okay, Gab, Ping said, dragging her back up. We'll give you another shot in a second. You're thinking too much. Yeah, Gab, Kit said. It's not much different than going down a slide, just like doing the jungle gym when you were a kid. I didn't do jungle gyms, Kit, Gabrielle said, her voice shaking. She squirmed over the top of the wall, looking down at the sawdust below. The only experimenting I ever did with gravity was jump rope. Okay, Andy, Ping said. Show Gab how it's done. All you've got to do is slide down and push off the wall before I hit the mines. I looked at Ping, right? And hope I make it over the sawdust. Excuse me, Andy, Gabrielle said, swinging her legs over the top and elbowing me out of the way. Without another word, she pushed herself over the edge, slid down the wall, and landed safely on her hands and knees in the dirt outside the red piping. Hoo-ah! Kit and Jason yelled, slapping hands. Gabrielle got to her feet, picked her heads out of the dirt, shoved them on her face, and brushed herself off. Piece of cake. Now it's your turn, Andy.